joined by another amazing guest today, music therapist at Nordoff Robbins, Fraser Moyle. How are you, okay?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. Yeah,
Good.
kind of enjoyed some kind of sunshine weather. But, yeah,
Tell me about it. How's things been though? You been okay?
yeah, good. Just finished kind of a year really of sort of work, I
Mhm.
guess, after the kind of furlough and working from home kind of situation that everyone's been in. So I've been doing some virtual online Zoom therapy sessions and yeah, managed to get back in the workplace really for bits and pieces in the last sort of 6 months.
Oh, wow. But how was it doing your sessions over Zoom? It must have changed completely what compared to what you were doing beforehand.
Yeah, it took a while for us to kind of to adapt to that way of working. It was something that we'd done as a charity or as a sort of as a practice before.
Mm.
So it definitely has its limitations in terms of being able to have kind of creative response and being in the same room as someone. But actually works really well for call and response, music making, and also song singing. Um, and actually, a lot of the clients that we worked with, some of them find going into certain places and going out into society really challenging and difficult. So a lot of the feedback we got from people that suffer with that kind of way of interacting with the world actually were able to partake and enjoy sessions in their own spaces. So if they kind of felt nervous, they could log off or kind of participate in different ways. So where we lost out in one aspect of the work, or in many aspects of the work, we actually were able to um, connect with people in a different way. So yeah, I think there's a plan to maybe continue doing some online, but obviously being back face to face is and I think I speak for most musicians,
Yeah.
is the way that that we want to be interacting and creating music with people.
Well, of course, and obviously being a therapist, were your sessions with Nordoff one to one, or were they group sessions, or were they both? How did it work?
Um, yeah, so it kind of worked in the same format that we would run our sessions normally. So it was a mixture of one to one and group. I personally ended up doing more groups. Oh no, actually, no, I did some one to one with with children and parents actually back in January. It's so difficult to remember all the changes. Um, which was really nice to interact with families actually that often you don't get to see it at the gates at school or
Mm.
obviously don't come into school. So there was sort of some family work happening and seeing the joys and kids' faces at home. That was quite nice. But generally, the other work actually I did was just an online work with adults that would normally go to day centres. So that was groups predominantly, um, and some specialist music lessons. So, which is sort of an adaptive way of um, teaching someone certain skills on the guitar, it happened to be, but also incorporating um, improvised and creative ways to learn things rather than that. I think you're a teacher yourself, aren't you? So
Yeah.
I teach piano as well. So sort of combining quantitative sort of pieces and scales and grade five theory and all that kind of thing that you can see results and also ways of saying, oh, hang on a sec, let's step back and see if we can do like a corner response bit or something that's a bit more what the client or the person we work with needs rather than you've missed the F sharp in your D major
Yeah.
scales.
I mean, do you teach piano as well? I know you play violin and sing too. I mean, do you teach that as well?
Yeah,
Those.
yeah.
Yeah.
So piano's my main. Well, it's my singing and piano is main instrument. I think you can see, not that anyone on the podcast will be seeing this, but the keyboard here at home or in the flat. Um, so that's my main instrument for therapy work as well. But I do three part-time work for Nordoff Robbins and then freelance piano teaching and singing when we can get back.
Hmm.
I'm in a function band, so we've got weddings back in the last couple of weeks. called Truly Medley Deeply, if anyone wants to check them out.
I've actually heard of them before. Are you part of that group?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I am. So that's guitar and singing, sometimes a bit of drums. So
Oh,
uh,
multi-instrumentalist. I can see. Yeah.
yeah, I've forgotten what your first question was there now.
That's if you teach piano as well. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Mm.
So that kind of actually I do more now than I did before the pandemic. So that's, I think, a base of kind of, a lot of children weren't doing after school clubs because of
Mm.
the nature of uh, just sort of how those were running. So I sort of had a bit of space, and that worked really nicely with kids at home. I think I speak for, well, my niece certainly picked up lots of things, but families were doing a lot of creative sort of um, things that made, crafts and hobbies that they may not have been doing before, that they look to continue afterwards. So yeah, that worked well with teaching piano.
That's brilliant. I mean, during the pandemic, I mean, I always love to ask my guests. I mean, how have you been yourself during the pandemic? Have you been okay?
Yes, I mean, it's really difficult to look back over the year and a half, 18,
Hmm.
to and think that actually that first 6 to 8 weeks or whatever it was is like the shortest time that we were actually in that lockdown. There was
Mm.
no more. And when I sort of got annual leave sort of now for a bit of summer, I was kind of thinking, oh yeah, it's been a whole year since September, that academic year's kicked in, but
Yeah.
not been a typical year in that sort of in that context. So yeah, a lot of musicians have suffered, and there's, from not being able to perform. I'm quite lucky that I decided to go into music therapy because
Sorry.
um, I wanted to use my. I sort of worked with children with special needs from a young age,
Mm.
and obviously had the music side, so I kind of wanted to combine to see how they would both work. So that's my like day job as such, as well as piano teaching, and then the performance aspect I like to do um, is work, but also fun. I'm not doing it 7 days a week, so I don't have to. Luckily, don't have to sort of rely on that side of things. So I've been quite fortunate, and well supported through the self-employment scheme and everything else. But yeah, creatively, actually singing in harmony in a choir, I don't think I've done for 2 years,
2 years now.
maybe. Yeah,
Wow. Do you miss it a lot?
yeah, yeah,
I can
yeah.
imagine.
You can't recreate it, can you? Do you
You
sing
can't.
yourself?
I don't, I'm afraid. Now, I play piano and compose, but I'm on the orchestra, but I don't sing now. I wish I could, but no. But
Yeah.
do you have anything planned for the future with your choir?
So I'm not really attached to a choir necessarily. I do depping, which is like fitting in for
Mm.
bits and pieces. I did sing with Gareth Malone's Voices, like a choir, about 4 or 5, 6 years ago.
You have to get into that,
Um,
actually. Yeah.
yeah, which was a really good experience. But um, I, although I sing as a soloist in the function band and other aspects of using my voice in therapy work, I love having it blended in a group of 3 or 4, 5. So Frankie Valli and Beach Boys, that kind of sound world is, yeah, I miss it.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. I mean, what got you into therapy in the first place? Because you've been at Nordoff for what, just over 7 years now?
Yeah.
Yes. What got you into that world of therapy and music at the same time? What really drew you into that world?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, my kind of background of growing up into work was around special needs and caring as a PA for people that needed sort of taking out for activities.
Mm.
Um, I had music A level and a psychology A level and a theatre studies A level. So like combine those three together and you sort of get music therapy and art therapy and drama therapy. So I feel like it was kind of written in the stars from that point. But you can't really do an undergrad. So I studied music at York and then looked into how I could develop it, and went on to do the masters with Nordoff Robbins, but it was at the Northern College of Music in Manchester.
Oh wow.
So it worked nicely being up in York and having the northern connections for a bit. And yeah, it's such a unique way of working,
Mm.
really. And actually, a lot of musicians still aren't fully aware of music therapy
Mm.
and the nature of how it works. And our approach is run by Paul Nordoff and Clive Robbins, who are two people that put the kind of approach together, which is a creative, interactive, client-led. That's the main sort of point. Is we sort of take. I'm using inverted commas, which I realize is not going to be any good for people listening to this. But music, we sort of view music as someone's heart beating, or someone breathing, someone moving, and that embodiment rather than the finished product of music, or
Mm.
commercialized music, which or commoditized music, which that we kind of have now. So therefore, if someone is, I like to use the word otherwise enabled rather than disabled, um, then they may see or view the world very differently to how we do, or can only move and not speak, or um, children with autism. That's the main area that I kind of work in. Feel isolated and lack eye contact and building relationships. So we kind of grasp those little nuances and building blocks of music: melody, rhythm, pitch, harmony, 3-time, 4-time dynamics, and try and create those connections. So the person we're working with might turn around and, oh, hang on a sec, that person's responding to what I'm doing, but they might not know it's music.
Yeah.
We kind of call it, and that's sort of a great experience to have, actually. And it's there's not many of us, I don't think. There's a few more of us now than there were sort of 7-8 years ago.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, do you feel like your work has got busier during the pandemic because of how beneficial music therapy actually is? I mean, do you feel like more people are coming to you now for help?
Um, I'd like to think so. Yeah, there's been a lot of publicity in general about music. I think that the main thing, one of the main stories I remember in Italy was the singers from the balconies. I'm sure you've seen
I
the,
was
the
just thinking about that now, actually. Yeah. Yeah.
so that sort of awareness that music brings people together, and hopefully it will come back in terms of festivals and everything else. But our work has always been music as the forefront, and whilst we've lost, well, I can't speak for the organisation necessarily. I think most partnerships are back beforehand, but definitely there's another avenue, or more than another avenue of online connections, and we've branched out into different ways of working and adapted to sort of do things slightly differently than we may have done beforehand. And I think we'll be busier. Well, we're still here and we're still
Yeah.
working. Uh,
Yeah.
I think everyone had a bit of a uncertainty whether, especially in the charity field, whether there was going to be enough fundraising and support for those areas to survive. But thankfully, yeah, we've still got pathways to keep going.
Yeah, of course, because I know that you have experience with music therapy with a broad variety of client groups such as special educational needs, autism, like you mentioned, in adolescents and young adults, and in elderly care homes for people with dementia and Alzheimer's too. I mean, when you approach, say, each bracket, how different are your approaches to each one, or are they fairly similar in certain ways?
So the broad kind of approach for Nordoff Robbins is the same,
Yeah. Okay.
which is kind of back to the point earlier, the client led. I think the title of the course is Music, Health and Society. So social interaction, emotional well-being, and put me on the spot now. I'm sure there's no one to connect
It's okay.
to that. So then within the brackets that you've given there, an example for working in dementia care, you'd be tailoring the way that you're interacting very differently to how you would be in special needs, or with a 20-year-old high functioning adult with Asperger's, or with someone that's in stroke rehab. So whilst our kind of approach in terms of how we use music to engage with those people is from the same hymn sheet, to use a pun, will then react to what's happening in that setting at that particular moment in time and go with it. And that's the beauty of music, is that it can adapt and change and flow and ebb and flow and slow down and cadence and change and be led into different sections.
Yeah, I mean, you must have seen a video, actually. It went viral quite a few years ago now, but of the elderly gentleman I think it was in a wheelchair, who had severe Alzheimer's. Couldn't remember anything. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then see, put the headphones on like he just did there with the hands, where he literally remembered all the lyrics, the tunes of the music, and we just got to show you how truly powerful music actually is. I mean, has anything sort of similar happened in your experience, where you've seen patients with severe dementia or Alzheimer's, yet when you play them tunes or any kind of thing, they just remember straight away? Has that ever happened to you, or anything similar?
Yeah, in that setting, the embodiment and the physicality of someone can change so dramatically from as you say, being almost absent or still and very lost, and the familiarity of of tunes, nursery rhymes or tunes from back in their child, definitely is something that bring in bits of movement, bring in bits of them singing melody. I think the interesting thing about melody is that language has a very has one pathway from the right side of the brain, but music accesses the whole brain at the same time. There's lots of scans of how that sort of, although there's obviously a long way to go with realizing exactly how it does. It's part of the magic and the mystery, and therefore it bypasses those direct kind of avenues. So I worked with a gentleman about 5 or 6 years ago who had a stroke and couldn't string sentences together past 2 or 3. There's a word for it. I'm going to pick it out from now. Paraplegia, something pleasure, I think. And paraplegia is to do with physicality. So that one. And when we started to sing songs, familiar ones, he would be able to finish the melody and sing along with the words in the song.
Wow.
To that, yeah, which is it's just incredible. So I have a colleague of mine actually called Richard Sanderson. So anyone that's listening that wants to see someone working in dementia, specifically in dementia work, he's the king. He's amazing. And I'm sure his videos will be up online on the Nordoff Robbins YouTube and website. And yeah, I think the beauty of the therapy side of doing work in dementia care is that when you put recorded music on, there's a very specific sound and key and tempo and melody, and you recognize the song. But the beauty of our work is that we can create that and then lead it to something new as well, and respond to the quality of the vocalization or the quality of the way they're interacting and the movement and the dancing. And so then if it brings that personal touch and immediacy to the work, which then heightens that experience for the people that we work with. So whilst the example you've given is obviously absolutely amazing, that is just kind of times by, I don't know, 100 or whatever, when when you get that in person connection, and actually online to in person for that setting. Yeah, definitely face-to-face work is really key. And sorry to prolong
No,
this a little
look, keep
bit
talking.
longer.
It's fine. I love it. It's fine.
I think we've noticed with the care home situation with the deterioration unfortunately, of that particular bracket or age group of people, is that the families that haven't been able to go and see family members in person, it's just been like catastrophic, hasn't it?
It really has.
The care and staff members in those places have reported, and then when the physical presence of the family members has come back, it's then all of those sort of the trajectory has gone back up again. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, talk about the care home situation, because like you said, it was so catastrophic that no one could actually see the elderly for so long. I mean, were you able to do any kind of work to help them during that period at all? Like, you mean, like over Zoom, like getting the nurses to like show over like the iPads or anything? Were you able to help out at all?
yeah, I think there were quite a few colleagues that have been working in those settings
Mm.
through Zoom with and again really good coordination and partnership and collaboration with staff members and care members in those settings, which I think brought the communities to get together. So where the the in person and can I say liveness of the work may have been missing, that aspect of us as therapists passing on what we can through a screen, and almost equipping and training as well the staff members that are there that may have the instruments and be able to move and sing, to kind of not be afraid to say through the screen, yes, that's great, the gentleman there's just got up and started dancing, go with it.
Yeah.
And then, oh great, he's moved on and done something different, now we're going to switch to this song, and highlight those points, because that's really the therapeutic, creative, collaborative part of our work, which makes it kind of special.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, sticking to that liveness, that situation. I mean, before the pandemic, were you able to bring outside performers or musicians to Nordoff Therapy, and then vice versa, take them outside to see live performances as well at all, to help with the therapeutic sessions?
So Nordoff Robbins have a really good sort of long-running relationship with musicians in the music industry, and they come and have done sort of fundraising videos and collaborations with the centres and visited us to see clients. There hasn't been the sort of sessions in that context would be very kind of private. We've just run a campaign called We Are Listening, which I would highly recommend as not just a Nordoff Robbins music therapist, but as a musician, anyone that's interested in this specific point, where they kind of drip fed over the last 2 months different episodes of ways that we could talk about music therapy, but without saying what it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
I recommend going and sort of looking at each episode, and then it makes sense from watching them. But specifically, there's episode 7, I think, is with Lapsy.
Okay, I'm going to type this out actually. So
Sorry?
We Are Listening. Yeah.
Yeah, We Are Listening. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you were able to link any of these in the
I will, for sure. I will do. Yeah.
And that was like a new avenue for us being able to, as you say, bringing these live performances. It's a video that's recorded with one of the girls that comes to have sessions with one of my colleagues, and an interpreted dancer who embodies. I think I've used embody like 4 times, so maybe you can cut out of my embodiment. And it's, I mean, I had tears watching it. It's just so moving. um, from so many different perspectives, from a dance perspective, from a therapy perspective, from a musician's perspective, and just as a clip on its own. So fingers crossed. And the last clip is actually with Romano, and that is a live performance at the Albert Hall.
Wow.
With the in-house gospel choir or gospel. So yeah, I mean that would be great with the orchestra to think, in the future whether there's sort of advocacy for performances like that. Really, I think it kind of crosses the boundary between showing our work and showing different ways of how people interact and respond to music.
Sure.
The best example I could give when we had a meeting the other week was like the Paralympics and the Olympics, and the sort of adverts that were up when London did the Paralympics, which I think did it better than anyone else. And they had adverts with prosthetics and people in different sort of looking different from how we would normally, or what society would see as the norm. And the couple of, all of the bits in the We Are Listening campaign touch upon different ways people view music and how they see it, and specifically the two that I've mentioned bring to life a side of the work that we do and see every day, and hopefully allow other people to kind of get on board as to what we're trying to achieve.
For sure. I mean, going back to what you mentioned earlier about the patient with a stroke, you said he couldn't say more than 2 or 3 sentences. Yet when you put the music on, he knew all the words. I mean, when you have your sessions with various patients, whether it's Alzheimer's or whatever it might be, do you ever, or are you able to ever talk to, say, their family or friends and try and maybe find out what they liked beforehand growing up, or what their favorite kind of music was beforehand, so you can then apply that to what you do as part of your sessions, so you can maybe unlock some kind of memories or anything around that area?
Yeah, I think with the open access work, which open access for us is centres where people come specifically for music therapy. We've got one in at the Brit School on the Brit site in Croydon, which is my kind of home, and then the London Centre as well up at Gospel Oak, and I think Newcastle and Scotland, and it's I think 7 or 8 now we've got across the country. So that's kind of developing really nicely. In those centres, because of the nature of the way that the clients are coming to the sessions, often they're coming with carers and parents. So the referrals are made directly by parents. So there's a lot of conversations that happen beforehand with the direction of where therapy might go, and almost after every session some kind of feedback as to how that's affecting their lives. I worked with someone that we used for the Christmas campaign, which we did as a virtual Christmas carol concert for the first.
Really?
And it was quite emotional watching it because I hadn't seen them since the pandemic. And he, the father of the person I was working with, used to come and sit in the sessions actually, and was just amazed by how his daughter was in the sessions, and then when they go on walks afterwards, how her behaviour would change to the environment around her, and how it would change on the car on the way across after she realised where she was going. So I think that's quite unique and powerful to have. Unfortunately, with the placement organisation work, it's a little bit harder within school settings and hospitals and things to have that in-person contact. But there's definitely presentations and emails and phone calls where we try and connect as much as possible to hear what changes and impact it's having on the people in their lives. Yeah.
For sure. I mean, How long do your sessions normally last for? They half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, shorter or longer than that? How long are your sessions normally? Or does that depend on
Individual
the group?
sessions between 30 and 45 minutes.
Okay.
Um, Children at the schools I work in, sometimes the capacity for attention and listening is a little bit lower. Um, and group work can be up to an hour and a half. You're doing an open group,
Hmm.
so it can be fairly flexible. Um, the online groups that I've been doing through Zoom have been 45 minutes, but then it's not sort of a right now we've hit 44 minutes.
Yeah.
We're going to stop, kind of wrap it up towards the end. So yeah.
Hmm. I mean, with those open sessions, are they for any age group to come forward, or is it like a mixed bag of ages, or is it literally okay? Say 2 o'clock is for this age group, for say 3 o'clock is for that group. How does that work?
So it'll vary from the setting. If I'm doing a day at a hospital and there's sort of a lunch break and there's sort of a games room or social room, might just put some instruments in and say there's sort of half an hour for you to come and try some of the instruments out. Might lead to some song singing or some lyric writing. Um, so that could be for the parents that come in if they're only there for a day.
Hmm.
If it's at a school, then it would be maybe for children that aren't having one-to-one sessions but might have an interest in um, bringing something sort of different or alternative to what we might work in a one-to-one setting. So
Okay. And do you still do work with St. John's Church in Wimbledon by chance as well?
yeah, uh,
Yeah.
well, kind of, yeah. So that's Michael Higgins, who used to run the choir,
Hmm.
was the accompanist for Gareth Malone when we did the um, when I sung back for them. So obviously, because of the pandemic, I haven't been able to go over and sing. But that would be one of the choirs that I would go and help out with the concerts and run festivals over at Wimbledon International Music Festival, which I think should be back up and running. Or did it happen last year? No, it would have been virtual. See, I can't remember now. If it was virtual
Okay.
last year or not. Yes, it was virtual last year. Yeah. Um, so yeah, I'm still kind of connected to, well, as much as I can be, um, choirs and singing. So
Fair enough. And was it, you said about you were 5, 6 years, I think, with Gareth Malone's Voices, you said? Or was it?
that was about 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
go. So, yeah. How long were you with them for?
So that was a year project, I think, or a year and a
Okay.
half project.
Okay.
So it was a chance for a professional group of 18 to 24-year-olds, I think, to kind of go on a tour and um, sing sort of a kind of repertoire of music that crossed different genres, really.
Mm.
We recorded in music and did quite a lot of concerts, various different places as well. So it was really, yeah, really fun experience to get involved with that. And I met four of the guys from that and created like another little group, which was, might as well say, even plug it, which is called the Harbour.
Yeah.
Uh, so it was yeah, I mentioned Beach Boys and
Frankie Valli and everyone.
Frankie
Yeah.
Valli. So it's
Yeah,
sort of a
Bangly,
five
sorry.
part
Yeah.
harmony um, bit group. So yeah, it was really good fun to just kind of do that on the back end of it. Really.
That's brilliant. Are you still part of the Harbour at the moment?
No, not that. It's sort of that lasted for about a year and a half as well. We're still in touch. One of the guys, James Partridge, if I can give his
Yeah, of
YouTube
course. Yeah,
shout
of course you
out,
can. Of course you
because
can.
he's been running his own quite a successful TikTok channel. I'm not on social media, so I have to follow his YouTube. But he's been doing top 10 um, sort of assembly school bangers and kind of gospel songs and TV advert songs and things, which has been quite fun. So he's in Truly Medley Deeply as well. as one of the band members. So we're still very close.
That's brilliant. But how's that going? Truly Medley Deeply. How's that getting on? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. So I'll give Nick Goodwin a shout out because he runs the band, and I did my first wedding and gig back for 18 months, 4 weeks, 3 weeks ago now. So
Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
it came flooding back, and I was like, oh yeah, this is sort of part of my job that I hadn't done for a while. So using the mic and getting all the levels right and holding the guitar and looking into the crowd and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, remembering the words, looking at a bandmate as well, and sort of like how do I interact? So yeah,
Yeah.
um,
Did you feel really rusty, or it was like you never left in the first place?
yeah. I mean, it's the first one back. There's a lot of kind of thing. It's a you drive to the venue, you set up, so you kind of have a checklist and tick it all off, and yeah, it takes time to get into the swing of it. Most years actually, just to get into the habit of going and doing gigs. But yeah, it's amazing how quickly. I guess been riding my bike this morning. I guess it's like riding a bike once you're doing the first sort of 15, 20 minutes, and then you just before you know it, the set's finished. And
Yeah.
yeah, we're really lucky that we're back working in that context because yeah, there was a year and a half worth of just I think James and Nick did quite a bit online, but a lot of weddings got moved, right?
Of course. I mean, I had a few to go to, and they've all got moved, so I have to wait and see what happens now. But what else do you have coming up in the future in terms of performances and work? Anything that I can promote for you?
Well, Truly Medley Deeply is my sort of summer, well, more than summer job. I've got most weekends through till September and October,
Brilliant.
so that's all steam ahead for that performance, and that's it. I'm not sort of involved in anything else. I'm hoping to go to a gig next week. Easy
Brilliant.
Life, the group
Yeah,
Easy
I
Life.
do. I do.
Yeah,
Ah,
so
nice.
yeah, it's been rescheduled because of the 4 week delay to the 6 month delay, or that's on Thursday. Um, but yeah, most of the gig work is private sort of events. So
Okay.
hopefully, when there's a public one, I'll send it through to you.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Actually, say that one more thing actually want to ask before we go actually is, uh, have you ever seen the King's Speech? You must have seen the King's Speech.
Mhm.
Yeah, because that scene where he obviously uses music to help him with his stuttering problem. I mean, do you work with a lot of people with stuttering problems as well, by chance, in the work that you do as a therapist?
I personally haven't,
Hmm.
but I have worked um, with mutism, selective mutism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Wow.
So that's been quite an interesting area, very isolated um, um, sort of bit of work. I mean, yeah, it's not particularly. I haven't come across it that often in the work. So um,
Wow. Selective mutism. I mean, how difficult was it for you to get them to say their first couple of words to you after a little? What was it, like after a few weeks or so, or?
yeah, I think the process for that was a lot of writing, songwriting,
Mhm.
and using voice in different ways, humming, body percussion, and um, movement as well. Uh, and actually, for the clip that I was talking to you about for the We Are Listening at the Albert Hall, there's a singer that sort of sings the client's melody in a different way. There's actually there's a um, I've seen this somewhere else as well. There's another concert where a chap who has had a brain injury, and he's sort of saying the words because he's lost his voice, so it has a voice box, and then the singer kind of sings it back. So quite often there's a fine line in therapy work of not making music for someone and taking it sort of away from them, but making music with someone.
Hmm.
Uh, and that so taking those ideas, taking the words off the page, and maybe saying them a couple of times round, 2 or 3 times, or putting it to a beat first and then building it up, rather than jumping straight in with all those building blocks that we spoke about at the start, rhythm, harmony, and everything. So it's finished music.
Oh wow, that's incredible.
So I think that was that worked well with this child that spoke at home but not at school. I think that was the selected part.
Oh wow.
So it was sorry, I'm not sure if you can hear that.
I can hear it in the background. I can hear it. I'll finish in a minute then, don't worry.
I'm trying to work out what note it is.
Amazing.
There it is again. You can check, you got the keyboard there. I live in Croydon, so there's a lot of
it's fine.
So it's great. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so I think that this particular child was anxious about using the voice in school, worried about what this might sound like, and actually used a lot of like caricature TV sort of voice sounds as well, very guttural, kind of. I'm not going to make any sound, but kind of very sort of quiet and timid sort of bits to self. So that was to reflect that in a bit of like like a mordant or a turn on the piano, or have a pedal going along at the same time. So there's some kind of implied tonality as well, and not putting pressure on the sort of, if the person is knowing they're being kind of referred for that as well. Because I find quite often the change happens in sessions when you're furthest away from the point of where the issue lies. So I find talking like this actually quite daunting. But
really?
Well, in some contexts, yeah, because I know people are going to be listening.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not what I think that might be, or he hasn't explained that quite right.
No, you're doing really well. Yeah.
No one's listened to it yet. But when I'm using music and improvising, there's not really a wrong way or wrong note, because you can change and adapt. And actually, the further you go into a session, the further you are away from walking in the door, and the more connected and in flow and in the next scene or stanza or part B of sonata or movement 4 or something, you're further down the pathway, and then that's where the changes happen, because you're not just there by yourself, you're there because the person or people you're working with have also got to that point together. You finish the session and you're like, oh, how did we end up in B flat minor in 3 time when we started, like, and oh gosh, I've just moved and done all these different aspects of, like I was saying about the gigs, and now like doing all this stuff, it's just happening. Whereas beforehand, I'm like, oh God, what am I going to do with my hands? What am I going to do with my feet? What am I going to do with, like, how am I going to dance? The music starts, and that all goes out the window. So that would be my
kind of like your therapy in a way, yeah.
Yeah, advice for someone that is, with a stutter or has anxiety or depression or really worried and concerned, is music and music therapy can just alleviate and take you so far from that base point that the change is possible without you realizing that it's happening.
And that is the perfect way to end the podcast. But thank you so much for today. I really loved it. Thank you.
Cool. Pleasure.
My pleasure. And you said you're not on social media, but how can people find you, just in case, in the work you do, just in case?
So Fraser Moyle, I think, would be still on Twitter and stuff. But yeah, I'm not an active social media sort of user. So yeah, quite hard to find again.
No worries at all.
Down to Croydon and
yeah. Oh, but thank you again, Fraser. I really loved that. Thank you so much. And that's the end of the episode, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.